Hello summoners and welcome back to Mobalytics, where today we are covering top 5 champions who can be played in other roles. This video will be pretty interesting, where we will cover 5 different champions who can be played outside of their traditional role. If you guys like this video, make sure you leave a comment down below and let us know, and I have a quick question for you for the future. If we were to do more of these, and this is something that you guys like, what is the criteria in which a champion is being played in another role? Does it have to be totally something viable, which is what we're saying in this video, or can it be something more fun or something untested? While this video does showcase a couple pretty cool and interesting picks in other roles, for the most part you will see them here eventually or a couple games out of the year. But if we do a future video, would you like to see something way more interesting, where it's something that you've never seen before, and is a little bit troll, but not necessarily, if you get what I mean. Also, let us know if you'd like to see this for role-specific stuff, top 5 top laners you didn't know existed, something like that. Anyway, let's get into the video, top 5 champions who can be played in other roles. Starting off, let's go with Clad Jungle. Now, this is something that I originally saw months and months ago. In one of my ranked games, there was a guy who mained Unsealed Spellbook Jungle Clad around Diamond 2 or Diamond 3 Elo, and this guy was a beast. Ever since then, here and there, I've seen Jungle Clad and tried it myself, and it is something that is genuinely pretty good. For the rune page, you're gonna go for Press the Attack, and you wanna make sure you get that Relentless Hunter so you can run around the map. The rest of it, try out other stuff and see what you like. As far as the build, it's going to be Blue Smite into Warrior Enchantment. Red Smite's not terrible, but definitely prefer that Blue Smite, Black Cleaver, Titanic Hydra, Guardian Angel, and Dead Man's Plate. Just a couple tips for Clad Jungle. As far as his clear, it's pretty bad until you get Tiamat, but once you complete that item, it's not bad at all. The other thing with Clad Jungle is that you have to be very careful and not lose your Scarl. You must smite and make sure that you're not losing your Scarl and pop those potions, because there is absolutely no way to get your Scarl back on jungle camps. It doesn't matter if you're fighting Scuttle Crab, the blue buff, you can't get Scarl back, you don't build up your courage. Obviously your ultimate is insane here, and you can use that to spam gank any lane you want. If a lane has no flash, your ultimate is one of the best ganking tools in the game, regardless of jungle or top lane Clad. And one more quick tip, you want to be careful on AoE camps or where there's multiple monsters, how you throw your bear trap on a rope. It will go through the small ones, but it will not go through the big one. So on the wolf camp, for example, maybe try auto attacking first and dragging the small ones out, that way you can hit all 3 with your Q. Next up on our list, let's talk about Rumble Mid. Now, Rumble Mid is something we've seen a little bit before. It's never been too terribly bad, but recently this year I've seen a couple of higher elo players making Rumble Mid work, and I want to go into why he's good. For the runes, Electrocute will give you the most amount of burst potential, and for mid lane you'll have a little bit of an easier time getting that proc off, because most mid laners can't trade with you due to your shield being obnoxious in the early game. The only rune I'm really not sure about here is Ultimate Hunter. A lot of people have said that this rune is underpowered and undertuned. It seems in theory perfect on Rumble, but maybe Ravenous Hunter or even Relentless Hunter to move around the map might be significantly better here. You'll have to try out Ultimate Hunter yourself. For the build, you will want Sorcerer's Shoes, but in specific matchups or against things like Twisted Fate, you will want to get Merc Treads, Morellonomicon, and Liandry's. Getting that early pen on Rumble has always been good, so these 2 items are a little bit interchangeable. Zanya's Hourglass, of course, great on Rumble, Void Staff, and Death Cap. You can swap out a couple things here and there, but this is a pretty standard Rumble build. As for why Rumble Mid is good, the pushing power and your shield strength makes it very hard for mid laners who are typically weaker around levels 1 to 3 early game than top laners, means that you're able to push out and do what you want and dictate the lane. Also, mid is a shorter lane, so if you do get caught pushing forward, you're likely not going to get run down by junglers like Graves or Kindred when you're getting ganked. The other thing is that around level 6, once you get your ultimate, running around the map and roaming with Rumble will be great for mid lane. Unfortunately for Rumble top, if you don't have teleport ready, it's so hard for you to get down to dragon fights or bot lane sieges, but with Rumble mid, you just run down there, especially with your celerity, use your shield to get there quicker, and then run down there and press R. I would say in watching this myself, Rumble mid has a weaker laning phase surprisingly than top lane, probably because you're facing less melee champions, but where you do strive is in the team fighting, getting there for agency to fight over objectives, and of course the pushing power. Next up on our list, this is the most standard pick of them all for this list, which would be Olaf in the top lane. This is something that throughout League's history has already been good, but I want to highlight it here because most of the time he is a jungler these days, but I would love to go into Conqueror Olaf top lane. Again, for Olaf jungle, typically you're going to be taking that Predator, but with Olaf top lane, having Conqueror, Legend Tenacity, and Last Stand, all of these runes are insane on Olaf in the precision tree, which is part of what makes him so good in the top lane. As far as your secondary page, Resolve is not 100% necessary. You can take whatever you like. Mana Flow Band isn't bad. Even surprisingly, Inspiration and taking Approach Velocity is pretty good as well. I would just recommend this first side and the main page for sure, but again, Resolve is a little bit up to you based on your testing. As far as the build, Ninja Tabby because you always have the Legend Tenacity rune, so definitely get the Tabby for defensive boots. Black Cleaver or Trinity Force are interchangeable here, depends on if you need to be a carry or more of a frontliner and facing more tanks. Ravenous Hydra I think is underrated on Olaf, the amount of lifesteal you get is fantastic. Sterix Gauge into Spirit Visage or GA depending on the game if you want to be more of a drain tank. Spirit Visage is fantastic, finally finishing into your Randuin's Omen, or if you need that immediate power spike and a bit more carry potential diving the backline, GA is great as a 5th item. Olaf top can cheese you very hard in the early game and make it quite difficult to deal with. Getting hit with one axe from a Corrupting Potion start Olaf is gonna run you down over and over and over again, and especially with Conqueror, he is so hard to trade against. After level 6, Olaf is going to run you down and be very hard to deal with when he tower dives you because of the immunity on his ultimate for CC. The other thing about Olaf is that he's meant to be a jungler in some sense as well, so if you're playing Olaf top and you're pushing your advantage, don't be afraid to go steal enemy jungle camps. We all know that you farm them very well and effectively, so grab a red buff, grab Krugs, grab Raptors, go ahead and invade the jungle and take whatever you want. If you're able to steal a blue buff, your axes will be deadly. The biggest thing about Olaf top lane is that you will be more susceptible, and even playing Olaf to some degree, of playing too over aggressive and going down side lanes and dying a lot. So I found myself and others watching them play Olaf top just getting a little bit too aggressive, and because you're so hard to 1v1, you kind of get in that berserker mindset. Just be a little bit cautious at times and don't go too ham. You need to go ham to play Olaf, but be mindful. Moving into our bot lane pick for you here, let's talk about Kayle bot lane, Kayle carry bot lane, or ADC, APC, whatever you would like to call it. For your runes and testing myself, Press the Attack does seem okay at first, but I was much preferring Lethal Tempo after a couple games of trying this out. Make sure you get yourself Last Stand. One thing about Last Stand with Kayle is that it's very easy to use effectively. Once you maybe even purposefully drop yourself below a certain threshold of HP, turning on your ultimate will give you insane damage. I've easily seen my Last Stand in some games, that rune specifically giving me over 1000 damage. Transcendence on Kayle will always be a must because after your CDR items in Gnasher's Tooth going into Transcendence with 30% CDR, you get nearly 100% uptime on your E, if not 100% uptime. For the build, it will be a standard Kayle build of Berserker Greaves, Gnasher's Tooth, Rage Blade, Rabadon's Deathcap, or Void Staff, depending. These two can be swapped, and then your last item depending on the game's situation, Zanya's Hourglass or Banshee's Veil. The reason that Kayle bot lane works is because it gives you a bit more time and a bit more cushion to scale and get to your insane late game. With Kale in a solo lane, while it's true that especially in the top lane you are able to bully some melee matchups, the problem is that sometimes you get camped, sometimes you can't carry because you're not able to get to your items. No different than an ADC like a Tristana, a Varus, an Ashe, a Caitlyn looking to get to a late game and get some items, Kale is looking to do the exact same. Kale has a little bit of utility on her heal and of course a lot of utility on her ultimate, and because of the nature of her doing mixed damage and shredding with her passive, this means that it doesn't necessarily lock your team comp into having AD always in the bot lane role. This means that your team can draft more AD on the mid and top side of the map, having things like Zed and not really forcing your team to be full AD. Your laning phase definitely suffers and sucks, but on your 2-item completion and having a support there to help you out will mean that you can pop off and carry some games. Finally, let's talk about Maokai's support. So for your rune page, Aftershock into Inspiration, somewhat similar to a Blitzcrank page, will be the best for you. Nothing too crazy here, mostly standard stuff. For your item choices, Merc Treads or Ninja Tabby or Lucidity Boots will all be good for you. As far as the rest of your items, of course completing the support item, getting yourself a Locket, a Knight's Vow, Dead Man's Plate, and a Gargoyle Stone Plate will be pretty good for you. Some of these things are interchangeable, you might have a few too many actives for you as well depending on the type of player you are, so just be mindful of this build and trying to figure out what you like. Even something like a Redemption, although not great for tanks, wouldn't be terrible on support Maokai. Maokai's support is as good as it seems. Of course the CC is really good in the bottom lane, and you make the most use of your one ability being really strong. In League of Legends, sometimes you have champions who are so strong simply because of one ability. I mean, if you think about taking away Alistar's Headbutt or Pulverize, one of his basic abilities would just not be the same champion. He's so strong in the support role because you make the most use of his one ability, and Maokai for years, because of his W, has always been a stable champion. His ultimate is great for dives and setting up 2v2s and 3v2 skirmishes. Also, you just are insanely tanky and make the most use of your roaming as well. He's a great Moby Boot support to have. You combine all of the good things about Maokai and somewhat get rid of the bad things, which can be a rough laning phase in the top lane and a somewhat slow jungle clear in the jungle, and genuinely I think Maokai support might be one of his better positions and a lot of people need to give it a try. Alright guys, thank you for watching. This has been the Mobalytics top 5 champions who can be played in other roles. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials and check out the product at mobalytics.gg and let us know what you thought of this video.